I have a number of environmental questions. I don't know if my colleagues do as well, but uh, I get the economic argument that 50% of a big loaf is, you could argue, is better than 100% of no loaf, and there's no large scale development on the site that's generating property tax revenues. But there's so many questions and issues associated with this, and I don't know if the developers or the attorneys are able to answer some of these, but we've gotten different explanations about the plan. One version was there is no plan, but there must be some part of a plan if you're able to identify 12,000 units of housing. So can you give any more indication of the plan? And apparently there's a tenant that has started construction that is described as light industrial. I think it's important for people to have some sense of what we're talking about here. There's a lot of issues with the process, as you've been hearing, but what are you actually proposing to put here that you can tell us about?
I think one of the things that's been challenging for folks is they're used to how things proceeded relative to things like Miller and Colony Park, where there was a PUD involved. There was a very clear site plan, and that isn't the case. This is not a PUD. So that makes it very difficult for folks right out the gate. In terms of the number of units and things, and I want to defer largely to the developer, right? When you're looking at market, what are the capabilities of the market? What can be absorbed in the area where we're between residential, commercial, retail? That's what's driving many of those unit and square footage estimates. It's based on market conditions as opposed to an actual site plan. So that's how we're able to then do our calculations based on a cost per unit or a cost per square foot to make the projections on land values and the sort without an actual site plan, without a PUD or something to that effect. But I would want to defer to the developer to speak to further than that.
Yeah, if Andy and Richard, it would be good to hear from you guys. So these are essentially theoretical calculations made based on the acreage and the possibility of how many units could be put on the ground. Is that a fair way to understand it? The 12,000 units. So it's not because I think we need to be as clear as we can be around this. It's not a commitment. It's not a public commitment to 12,000 units where we would then start calculating what's the actual number of the 20% units that would be affordable. This is just an estimate based on the acreage that could possibly be built. Is that a fair way to describe it?
Yes.
So can you give us other, you must have some ideas. You've made a calculation of the value, the property tax value that would be generated from it. So you got something in mind that you're working off of. What can you enlighten us? This is a whole lot of, trust me, and I think you can understand why people are uncomfortable. We kind of went through that with Tesla, but we knew what they were building. We just didn't know all of, what they were going to discharge into the river and put into the air and all of that. So I think there's a need for more information about what's proposed.
Sure. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Andy Pastor with Endeavor. We generated projections on this project. It all depends on infrastructure that we're going to be able to build. We gave the projection for the housing number of around 12,000 units. We had, I believe, 1 million square feet of industrial, 3 million square feet of retail, 1 million square feet of office. They were projections based on what we think can be accomplished on this site. That will change over time. It'll change with the market. And that was a preliminary projection that was given in order for the city to help project what kind of property tax and sales tax revenue could be generated from that. There were also time durations of when we thought those different uses would be delivered. And And so that's all been worked out. There is a plan, but it's projections of uses.
And do you have a projection of what, we've worked really hard on our affordable housing projects and have required the developers to have at least 50% of their total units at 60% area median income and below, with specific requirements for 50, 40 and below. What area median income are you guys proposing?
But we've talked about doing the 10% in a range of 60% and 80% affordable housing. That's to be determined as part of the regulating plan.
I'll just tell you, we consider 80% much closer to market rate when we're dealing with the developers we're partnering with, and we really push hard for them to have at least half their units or more at the 60% and below. Just because when you look at the cost of the 80%, it's pretty close to market rate. So that would certainly be a factor with any kind of affordable housing. And a TIRZ is essentially a contract, correct?
Correct.
So I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding with contracts is you can add requirements. It's an agreement between two parties. And I would want to see, if we were to do this, I would want to see a lot of requirements. Just letting you know. But another one is on the floodplain. We've talked some about this. I'm still struggling with what I've understood is the statement that there isn't a floodplain on the Colorado below the dams, because the dams regulate the level of water. But we all know we're seeing increasingly severe weather, and there's no guarantee that we won't have the kind of rain bombs that hit, Kerr County and Camp Mystic and even our area on Sadie Creek in the future that would affect this area. So I'm extremely concerned about the fact that so much of it is currently in the floodplain. I reached out to the Meadows Center for Water Studies at Texas State, and they're experts on water. And they sent me to the FEMA portal that shows a lot of the Dogs Head area in the floodplain. So I think it's important for y'all to lay out what your thinking and your position is on this, because any FEMA map shows a big portion of it in the floodplain.
Commissioner, we've got two of our civil engineers who can address that for you.
Okay.
Moody,
It's on. Yeah, you're on.
Keith Moody with Moody Engineering. Been working on this project for the last 6 years and studying the floodplain, specifically the Colorado River, which is what we're discussing here. One thing, just for clarity, the Colorado River does have a floodplain on it. A large amount of that floodplain was mapped that overextends into these mining areas. Right now, we are pursuing a letter of map revision with FEMA because the map is not correct. The area itself, there's high ground on the riverbank that provides quite a bit of margin, if you will, on that riverbank with the floodplain of the Colorado River, to where it's not coming into the site as those current FEMA maps that you're referring to. So this is just based on the elevation of the site. It's quite a bit higher in those areas along the riverbank.
Well, they have areas that are identified without base flood elevation and with base flood elevation or depth, and they're labeled special flood hazard areas, which is distinct from just floodplain.
That's correct.
So they just got it all wrong?
It's the study that went into that mapping dates back to about 2002 as far as the modeling, and technology has changed, and the elevation of the high ground in that area where those base flood elevations that you're seeing is higher than that elevation. So the floodplain just simply isn't coming into the site like the map is showing. So that's what's got to be corrected.
And are these all, FEMA's not kept up with Atlas 14. So these maps don't reflect the latest data, which is much more accurate and is literally a data set of actual rainfall for the last 25 years, which FEMA has not applied here. Have you looked at this area with Atlas 14 overlay?
So the RIP,
Or new, that's right. There's a new one coming out, Atlas 15.
that's correct. There's always a new Atlas number coming out. This portion of the river is not controlled by Atlas 14. It's controlled by the releases of floodwaters from
Okay,
the
that's
Colorado
what
River.
I heard that Atlas 14 doesn't apply here, which is a pretty big assumption that we won't have more extreme rainfall events, which we're seeing more and more of, and that they won't overtop the dam.
That is correct too. However, the study and the work that we're doing is going beyond just the releases from floodwaters downstream. We are also considering what Atlas 14 will do to the site as part of the development itself. So we're not only considering the floodplain as it exists, but also what Atlas 14, everything happening downstream of the dam to consider those catastrophic events that you're describing.
Well, that's one of the things that I would have to be addressed in any contract if we were to proceed. I have a lot more questions. Is it accurate the anchor tenant is already starting construction? Who's doing the construction there?
No, we are, as a reclamation site, the way dirt was put in, it needs to be flipped per se in certain areas, depending on certain uses, to have the kind of compaction that's acceptable to build on. So there is land that's being flipped there, but there is no work being done from a tenant perspective because there is no purchase and sale contract that has been finalized. In terms,
So there's no building being built?
there's not. It hasn't closed. So the site has not closed. It's not sold to anyone. It's waiting on. It's contingent on a TIRZ.
I will say it does concern me that every land use category in the entire city of Austin code is permitted. So that includes data center.
All of them.
What's that?
Not all of them.
Well, it looked like it was all of it. The entire list said permitted. I read the top to the bottom. It's a huge concern for lots and lots of people, but I'm especially concerned about the potential for a data center. And to the extent that the alluvial aquifer is right underneath you, the wells that have been dug there are like 30 feet compared to hundreds of feet for normal wells. So you've got an ample supply of water, or what might seem like ample. So it's concerning that no activity in the entire land use code of the city of Austin is prohibited. It's all permitted. Can you speak to that at all? I mean, are you willing to prohibit anything? Mining, data centers, industrial waste? I don't think industrial waste is prohibited in the city code, but
I helped Endeavor through the process. I don't remember. I don't remember which uses we did preclude from the agreement. You are accurate. Data centers are not a precluded use, and I would argue that at least with some analysis, that if we are going to have data centers, which that's still up in the air, it's becoming a statewide debate. If you were going to have one, you don't want it next to homes, and we don't have any homes out here on the Dogs Head area. The folks that you hear from are in the area, but they're adjacent to and not within the 2,600 acres. I think we have one homeowner in our.
Yeah, we have one family living.
well, but if you're proposing potentially 12,000 units of housing, you'd have people in the area.
It could be over time. Those are projections, but your statement is factual that the use categories out here are very flexible because we don't have any other uses yet that we have to buffer from. Over the master planning process, we will be very careful as how that happens.
So, can you say anything more about this mystery tenant? Can you give us anything? I mean, it's been described as light industrial.
I think what we've said in public hearings before, it's not Tesla. It's not a data center. It is a Fortune 100 company. That's about what they've got our hands tied to.
I think I asked, but I don't remember the answer. Is it SpaceX?
It is not SpaceX.
Let's ruling that out. Good. I will have other questions, but I'm going to stop there. Thank you. I appreciate your trying to answer them. I've got to follow up on that. I mean, obviously, this is very attractive land. It's surrounded by the Colorado River and really beautiful stretches of the Colorado River. Do you think this is the only way to do it? Like, if these guys say, "Hey, you took too long. We're out of here," that you won't be able to find another entity that would want to have a large scale development? I mean, this is what you guys do for a living. I'm kind of surprised if this is the only way this could work.
Well, of course, it's not the only way it'll work, but it's a very attractive way to jumpstart tax base in an area that really doesn't have much. And the thing about the area that's within the Dog's Head planning area, we're not displacing anybody. We're filling in basically mine pits. When you look at the corridor plan, thank you for referencing that to me. Nobody dreamed that we could actually fill in the holes and turn it into tax base. It was it anticipated maybe partially filling in and turning it into recreational spaces, which is great too, and we'll probably do a lot of that too. But it also, we have the opportunity here to turn it into tax base, and at a time when the state is putting the pressure on at least the city, and I probably imagine on you too, we've got to start thinking about how do we grow the pie. And this was just an opportunity that came along. If the commissioner's court or the city council decides that that's not attractive, we'll figure something else out. But this opportunity seems to be an opportunity that we shouldn't just dismiss summarily, because it could really jumpstart the whole area. And Commissioner Morales, it jumpstarts jobs, which jumpstarts housing, which jumpstarts the rooftops that the grocers require, and the services and everything else. And it also jumpstarts the transportation needs. There's transportation problems in this area that have been overlooked for years. They can be part of that spin up when you get a seed like what we're looking at.
Well, and what strikes me is Mueller obviously huge benefit for the whole community. That was a long community process. And I'm not suggesting necessarily that long, because that was city-owned land that was brownfields that had to be cleaned up and all that sort of thing. But you could still work with the city and the county and the community, construct a plan for a very financially beneficial development that would serve a lot of community needs, without having to get it done in 2-3 weeks' time, where we don't even know what's going to go there. We don't know what we're buying or what we're getting. And that's what I think that's what you're hearing from so many people. That's what everybody's struggling with.
Sure.
But you could still have these financing mechanisms that could help pay for the infrastructure and build out this really well-planned development that people knew what they were getting, and where there could be more parks, there could be more open space, there could be more access for the public. They aren't mutually exclusive, right? I mean, it's not like you won't be able to do anything with the land and you're stuck with it if we don't do this now.
No,
right?
It's not a now or never on the TIRZ. It's a now or never on whether we want this one financial opportunity for the city and the county for this tenant. But this tenant is only 300 acres of the 2,600. So there will be ample time to engage with all of the processes and all the people over the next 2,300 acres. So,
And you don't think you could find another potential large tenant that might be willing to work a little more with the community?
who knows? What happens when you run one off is the others look at that and say, I'm not so much interested in looking at Austin.
It doesn't seem to have affected it so far. I mean, that's been the big argument, that all these environmental regulations are going to cause no growth in the community, and we've failed clearly at that.
Sure, there's been a lot of talk about no environmental regulations. We're meeting current city code. on the environmental regulations. There's things in the development agreement that are, like, for instance, the cut and fill one is the easiest one to describe. Why is a cut and fill variance required when you're filling in holes or leveling out land? It didn't make any sense. So
I've seen references to portions of the environmental criteria manual being either eliminated or only applied with the development director being able to approve them with no oversight and not even bringing it to council.
well, another one is you're used to seeing land that has natural drainage ways within it. This has no natural drainage ways within it. The natural drainage way on this property is the 6.5 miles around the river frontage that we have committed to setting back and providing a trail and open space. But inside the 2,600 acres, you don't have any natural ones unless you create one. For instance, a unique situation would be if you build a site plan of more than 64 acres, under the current code, you create a watershed and now you create a waterway that you're supposed to set back from. What we're going to do is create a regional system where we won't have all this mix and match of 64 acre drainage areas. We'll have a bigger one and handle it on site. Those are the kinds of things that are weighed, and they're very, very technical.
Well, impervious cover obviously has a strong relationship between water quality and runoff. We don't need to revisit that, but that was the basis of SOS. And if you can't say how much impervious cover you'll have, or if it's very large amounts of impervious cover, that has an impact on water quality.
I think the conversation on impervious cover is going to continue. That could have been handled.
Well, we still don't know what it would be. Yeah.
But we also don't have an aquifer that is like the Edwards aquifer. That
Maybe not like the Edwards, but there is the Colorado alluvial aquifer on the site. And it is a water supply a drinking water supply for a lot of areas.
we should go out there and look at it. It's, when you look at the Colorado plan that you showed me, it's got a lot of good photographs of what has happened. as
Yes,
they've got
clearly,
down.
the sand and gravel pits are, they're there.
Yes.
They've been there a long time and they're a problem. Yeah.
All right.
We look forward to the next. We're hoping this works, and we're hoping to engage on the next 2,300 acres if this one works. And our commitment to you and the city and our neighbors is that we will commit to work on that.
What's the next 2,300 acres?
Well, the 2,600 acres is what we're talking about, but 300 of that is the user that we're going fast for.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about
The other
from the user.
2,300.
And Judge, I'll want advice from our attorneys on what we could propose to include in a TIRZ contract. I heard your language of a preliminary project and financing plan. Is that the right term for it? Correct. But I want flooding and addressing flooding issues addressed. I want environmental issues addressed. I don't know how you do a preliminary plan if you have no idea what the actual impervious cover is or what will actually be built. So I want guidance from our attorneys to us separate from this on anything we might consider.
If I can interject for a moment, the preliminary plan that Kim is describing is different than the preliminary plans that go with subdivisions. So this is about the tax piece of it and like the infrastructure, and not the preliminary plan as we normally think about from like a subdivision perspective. So the projects that would be described, admittedly, we don't have all of the pieces, but we know generally there needs to be roads, there'll need to be drainage, those things. So we would address those, but I would say the preliminary plan that we're used to seeing is more along the lines of the subdivision side. And the preliminary project and financing plan that Kim will be working on won't address those issues, but it will address the infrastructure needs that we can see kind of at this point are things we know: water, electricity, roads, those kinds of things.
But because the TIRZ is the financing mechanism that allows it to all happen, and it's a contract, I'd want guidance from our legal
Sure.
about, if it's a contract, a lot of flexibility on what both sides agree to.
Sure. And
Understood.
and Commissioner, there's a 2 threshold piece that we have a commitment to you and the county, and that is, if your financial people can't determine that you're better off investing in this than not. In other words, if you say I can get X if I don't invest, but I can get X plus if I do invest, the first threshold is you've got to determine it's a good deal for the county. And we stipulate that, and the financial folks will have to convince you of that. And then the second thing is you have to decide, even if it is a good financial deal for the county, is it something you want to be involved in? And our commitment is it's up to us to convince you, and it's up to the community to say, this looks like a prudent deal. And our commitment to you is on the financial piece, and we'll work with you on the contract piece.
Okay, thank you.